Hello, biology students. Today we're going to be talking about cycles. We're going to be talking about water, carbon, and nitrogen cycle. Let's jump in. What is a biochemical cycle? Well, it's a process by which a molecule, like a carbon molecule or a water molecule or a nitrogen molecule, moves through living and non-living storages on Earth. Storages are different places where those molecules can be stuck. So those different substances or molecules that we're going to focus on are water, carbon, and nitrogen. And we're going to practice all three in class. Let's start with the water cycle. So as we walk through, make sure you're jotting down those big important water cycle terms. So water vapor from the atmosphere as a gas condenses and precipitates or falls to the Earth's surface as rain or snow. So precipitation can be as the form of liquid or solids. Some water seeps into the ground. That's called infiltration. So as rain hits the ground, it moves down into the ground, and that is called infiltration. When water becomes saturated, some of the water in the ground will flow off into lakes and streams, whoosh, and it'll go as runoff. Some water returns to the atmosphere as it becomes a gas again, and that's called evaporation. That's going from liquid to gas. Water then can move up through a plant as evaporation. There's a specific thing called transpiration. That's just evaporation through a plant. Transpiration. Now we're going to move on to carbon cycle, which is a little less familiar, but because we've been doing photosynthesis and cellular respiration, we're going to be a little bit better at carbon cycle than we think. So plants take CO2 from the air to make glucose that can be used by other animals. That's photosynthesis. So the CO2 is removed through photosynthesis from the atmosphere. All right, this produces organic molecules in the form of biomass. So the plant gets bigger, and that's called biomass. Its mass is biological, and it gets bigger. A plant might grow. All other organisms, including plants, do cellular respiration, right? Plants, fungi, animals, bacteria all do cellular respiration, and when they do that, they release CO2 back into the atmosphere. So remember, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are a cycle. They're opposites. A couple more carbon cycle stuff. So for instance, bacteria and fungi do cellular respiration through the process of decomposition. When a living organism dies, the organic matter is broken down by decomposers, and they release CO2 when they do cellular respiration. So that's our fungi and our bacteria. All right, as things decompose over time and heat and pressure, those things can become fossil fuels. That's going to take thousands upon thousands of years. But we as humans, we take those things like coal and oil and gas, and we burn them, and we put those carbon storages, like in wood or other fossil fuels like coal and oil, back into the atmosphere through combustion. Right, we see that through the pipes of our cars and our factory stacks. Last but not least, we have our nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is important to understand because actually our air or atmosphere is almost 80% nitrogen. We usually think it's oxygen, but it's mostly nitrogen. But unfortunately, most living things can't use that form that's up in the atmosphere. It's called N2. Isn't that silly that that's the most common form of nitrogen and it's not even usable? So the limiting factor for many organisms and how they grow is how to get usable nitrogen. All right, so plants, they struggle to grow because they can't use that atmospheric nitrogen. Animals struggle with nitrogen because they can't just breathe it in and use it. So a big important process is called nitrogen fixation. It's mutualism between, symbiotic bacteria and legumes, which are like bean plants, and they can change that form of nitrogen in the atmosphere and make it into a usable form. Also, lightning can cause nitrogen to become a usable form too. Plants get their nitrogen from the roots and from the soil once it's in a usable form. So remember, plants cannot get that usable form of nitrogen from the air. They have to absorb it from the soil, and hopefully some bacteria like that on a bean plant helped to convert it. And then animals get their nitrogen by eating plants, right? Both of these things need nitrogen because nitrogen is in proteins and DNA. Well, great job, guys. Those are our cycles. We're going to practice all three in class. See you then.